Hi everybody. We're going to be doing 6-1 through 6-3 for this video. We may even be able to fit in 6-4 depending on time. This will move fairly quickly through 6-1 and 6-3, so please pause as necessary. We're going to be talking about developing a worksheet and what it takes to develop a worksheet. So we're going to go ahead and get 6-1 open, 6-1 work together. So when 6-1 work together, what they are asking us is we're starting a worksheet. Again, a worksheet is basically going to be pulled, the trial balances are going to be pulled from our general ledger totals. We're putting them all into one place. We're looking to see what we have for trial balances in each and every account. We'll do some adjustments depending on what we've used throughout those accounts for the year, or for the month, I should say. And then we'll also pull them over and get ourselves some balance sheet totals and then income statement totals that we'll be able to use in a future lesson. So the first thing they're asking, it says on April 30th of the current year, Fix It Now is ready to prepare the worksheet. The business uses a monthly fiscal period. The first step in preparing the worksheet is the heading. Fill in the blanks for each row of the worksheet for the heading Fix It Now, April 30th of the current year. Enter the current year as 2000 dash dash. So on a financial statement, any financial statement that we're preparing in our assignments, again, we're always going to have 3 lines. We're always going to put the company title, our company name, on the first row. Second row, we're always going to put the document that we're creating, which here's a worksheet. And then last, we're going to put the date, but we put it a little bit different this time. We say for month ended April 30th, 2000 dash dash. Again, we put that for month ended because we're doing it at the end of their fiscal period, which is at the end of the month. Again, if you're still kind of unclear as to what a worksheet is and why we're preparing it, please take a look at your notes. Also, please take a look in chapter 6 in the book when they talk about why there is a need to prepare a worksheet. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next step. What they have us doing first is just recording our trial balances, and that's a pretty simple step. All we're doing is taking the information that they've given us in our question assets. Again, all the information in here is taken from our general ledgers and just put into a nice, neat little pile for us. We know what the balance is. We also know if it's a debit or a credit balance. So we're going to go down here. And to save myself just some scrolling back and forth, I'm just going to pull the things down from that I have here on the key in front of me. Again, I'd be taking it all the information right here. I'm just pulling it down. So I know cash, for example, $4,900 debit balance. I just fill that in, $4,900. Okay, so my petty cash, it told me up top $75 balance. My accounts receivable, $1,387. My supplies, $228. My prepaid insurance, $375. My accounts payable to sell side, $267. My capital, $7,443. My drawing, $1,700. It did not tell me I had an income summary balance, so we just leave it blank. My sales were $2,160. My advertising expense, $460. My cash short and over was $6. It did not tell me insurance expense, leave that blank. My miscellaneous expense was $189. My supplies expense, they did not tell me, so leave it blank. And my utilities, $550. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trial balance, I'm going to take all of my debits, add them up. I'm going to take all of my credits and add those up. These two totals, my debits and my credits, should equal right now. When I add these up, I get $98.70 on the debit and $98.70 credit. And that is that. As long as I'm balancing, I should be okay. So that is that for 6-1. Now let's go ahead and go back to 6-2. Okay, so 6-2 work together. You'll see what I have here is I have my trial balance filled in. We already did this portion in our last lesson. They're just showing us what we did. Now we're going to work on our second column, which is our adjustments. We're going to make any adjustments. And what it says on April 30th of the current year, Fix It Now has completed the trial balance columns of the worksheet. Analyze the adjustment information given here into debit and credit parts. Record the adjustments on the worksheet, total the adjustment columns. So what it's telling me is that at the end of the month, the supplies that I have on hand are actually only worth $75 rather than what I paid out throughout the month. And my prepaid insurance is actually only worth $250. And the example I gave in class was, let's say that we have a hair salon and we're running a hair salon. Obviously, throughout the month, we're going to buy shampoo, conditioner, hair products, things like that, that we're going to use on clients. So we might spend, let's say for this example, we might spend $228 throughout the month on our supplies. So right here, we might spend $228 on our supplies, but at the end of the month, we're not going to have that amount of supplies left. We'll have obviously used that shampoo and that conditioner and things like that throughout the month. So what they're telling us here is what we have at the end of the month is actually we have $75 left in supplies. So what I need to do is I need to do an adjustment for my supplies. But I'm not just going to put 75 in here, okay? Because I want to end up, when I bring my totals over, I want to end up with 75 total here. So what I'm going to put is I'm going to actually take 228, which is what I paid out in supplies, minus 75, which is what I end up with, and the difference between those two is 153. So I'm going to credit my supplies $153 because I need my supplies to decrease by $153. I used $153 worth of supplies that fiscal period. Now I have an expense to supplies, so I need to go and debit supplies expense. Now the next thing I need to do is I have my value of prepaid insurance. They're telling me my value at the end of the month is $250. Well, I paid out $375, so again I'm going to take the difference between these two. So I'm going to go ahead and credit $125, and then I'm going to go ahead and debit insurance expense $125. I'm going to take the total of these two. My grand total is $278. I'm going to take the total of my credit column, the two items, grand total $278. My debits and credits still balancing, which is where I should be. Okay, go ahead and go to now 6.3, please. Okay. Here is when we start to pull everything over. We have what we have done so far. We have our trial balance filled in. We have our adjustments filled in. Now we have to get our income statement and our balance sheet. Now remember, we have balance sheet accounts and we have income statement accounts. Balance sheet accounts are our assets, our liabilities, our owner's equity. Income statement accounts is our revenue and our expenses. So for example, income statement account, an asset is not an income statement account. So I'm not going to put anything for cash in this column. I'll put it over in my balance sheet column. Again, balance sheet, asset, liabilities, owner's equity, income statement, revenue, expenses. So all we're going to do is they want us to fill in our balance sheet and income statement columns. I always like to start at the top. So I know I'm starting at the top with cash. This is an asset, therefore it's going to show up on my balance sheet. I take my trial balance. I have no adjustments, so my balance over here is still $4,900. For petty cash, I have initial balance. I have no adjustments, $75. For accounts receivable, initial trial balance, no adjustments, still the same balance. Supplies. I started off, I paid $228 for supplies throughout the fiscal period. I used, though, $153 of those supplies. I end up with $75. That $75 should be a little bit familiar. That's what they were telling us in our last lesson that we would end up with at the end of the month. Prepaid insurance. Start off with $375, used $125, therefore $250. Accounts payable, I have no adjustment, so $267. Capital, no adjustment, $7,443. Drawing, no adjustment, $1,700. Income summary, I have no total, no adjustment, so I just leave that blank. I am done with my balance sheet accounts. Okay, assets, liabilities, owner's equity. I now know that I'm going to be moving on to my revenue and my expenses, which will be my income statement accounts. Sales, no adjustments, same balance. Advertising expense, no adjustments, same balance. Cash short and over, no adjustments, same balance. Insurance expense, I started with nothing. However, I have an adjustment, so I have a new balance of $125. Miscellaneous expense, no adjustments. Supplies expense, I started with nothing. However, I have an adjustment, new balance $153. And utilities expense, no adjustments, $550. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these columns. I'm going to take my debit and credit for income statement, my debit and credit for balance sheet, total them up. If I were to add all of these up, I'd have $1,483, $2,160, $83.87, $7,710. Now, these don't balance right now. That's okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next step. What we're going to do here is we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, we're going to figure out if we had a net income or a net loss. Again, a net income means that we made money. Net loss means that we lost money. How we figure that is we take our revenue. We take our total revenue, which is $21.60. Again, that's our sales. Total revenue is $21.60. I take my total expenses, $14.83. I'm hoping that my revenue is greater than my expenses. If my revenue is greater than my expenses, meaning that I brought more money in than I spent, I have what's called net income. If my revenue was less than, I would have to put net loss right here. Now, what I'm going to do is I need to get these to balance out. So I'm going to take the difference between these two. I'm going to take $21.60. I'm going to subtract $14.83. The difference between these two is $6.77. I'm going to take that, I'm going to add that to my lesser column to get them to balance out. $21.60, $21.60. This doesn't mean that I all of a sudden had $6.77 in expenses. I'm just getting things to balance out. I'm going to do the same for my balance sheet. I'm going to take my larger number, $83.87, subtract $77.10. The difference is $6.77. Obviously the same number. You're looking for this to be the same number difference here. Add these two, $83.87, $83.87. Done. You have completed your worksheet. You have been able to tell whether you have a net income or a net loss. Okay, we'll go ahead and put 6.4 on a different video. Please tune in for that one.